Okay, I'm just going to hop straight into this. I'm going to assume that you've, gone along with me in the first part and tried to mimic my movements somewhat, and may have even had to have watched it a few times to pick it up. I'm going to assume that some of it's sunk in, and we can go ahead and just use the basic tools, which is all I'm going to be doing. I'm not going to go and explain them. I might still say what the shortcut is. Might also give a bit of a brief rundown on something if I feel as though I haven't covered it, or I just want to reiterate the point. But for the most part, I'm not going to sit here and explain everything again. So we're going to make a playground. I will be explaining the parts that relate to that, and it's not an overly complicated process, which is good. And all it is using the tools that we learnt from the first lesson and just applying them to moving objects around and piecing them together. So if you haven't already, you could open up your copy of maxstage.max file and you'll be presented with something similar to this screen. You can go ahead and make your windows look the same as mine. For the most part, I won't be changing these. The only window I'll be changing is this bottom left one, which I will probably make a perspective view, which is P. So I will be doing that now. And sometimes I might revert that back to left if I want to check the height of something. Okay, well, let's get straight into it. We want to get rid of these lights again. So I want to select the move tool. It's a move and selection tool, and just highlight the lot, right click and hide. Now I'm going to open up the utilities menu on the very right hand side here, signified by the hammer. I'm going to click that and I'm going to click Asset Browser. Now the Asset Browser is where we're going to drag our files from, our 3D models. Now this browser will come up with this window. Just push OK, because it also connects to the internet somewhat, but we won't be connecting to the internet with it. We have no need. So we want to point this browser to where our designs are. Now if you remember at the start of part 1, I said that I like to keep my designs on the desktop in a folder called Designs. Yours could be anywhere, and it doesn't matter where they are as long as you know how to find them relatively easily. So I'm going to go ahead and point this browser to where my files are. So I'm going to close all these little windows, these little folders down. Okay, that's my desktop. And these are everything that's on my desktop. And so there's my designs folder. I'm going to highlight that and then I'm going to expand it. Then it shows you what's inside it. I'm going to expand 3D Max parts and I'm done. So I've pointed the browser to where we're going to be working from. So now, usually we'd have a design brief of some sort of what kind of playground we're going to be building. You might have a grey lead sketch or a pen sketch, or it might be a computer graphic that someone's drawn in Illustrator or Microsoft Paint, or it could be a rendered 3D model from another program or through another company. However you get it, you would be designing from that. Now I don't have one, so we're just going to make a bit of a fantasy playground up. Just going to make it up as I go. It's not going to be big, because I could make a really giant one and you'd be bored. I'd be bored, and you probably wouldn't learn too much because you'd be bored. So I'm just going to keep it very simple, probably a 2-deck system. A couple of climbers, a slide, a roof, some poles, and a few panels. And hopefully you'll be able to follow along. Alright, so I like to start off with decks. Decks are they give us our height of the other components we need for our slides and for our climbers and panels and so forth. So I'm going to go into my decks folder, and they're all named. Well, they make sense to me. They might not make sense to anyone else, but I hope they make sense. They're actually in Australian measurements, so we work in centimetres and metres, whereas in America and other places around the world you might work in inches and metres as well, or feet. So I'm going to make a 90 deck stepping up to a 120 deck with an infill panel in between. I'm going to put the posts in, and I'm going to put the climbers and the slides into suit. So I'm going to start off with my 90 deck. So I'm going to click it and highlight it. Let's just shrink this window down. I actually have two computer monitors. So normally when I work, this is all the way over on my other screen, which you can't see. But for this tutorial I will leave it in this window, and more than likely you'll be doing the same unless you've got two monitors, in which case I advise you to put it on the other screen and maximize it. So I've selected 90 deck or 900 deck. I'm just going to click it once, so click it once, and then I'm going to click and hold and drag it over to my top view. I always build in the top view first. A little window will pop up with open file, merge file, xref file, and cancel. Now cancel, if you don't want to bring that over, cancel. It won't put it in the scene. Okay, the other few options, we're going to bring it over again. You open it. Now you don't want to do that unless you want to open a whole new instance of 3D Max. This will actually open the file in a new instance of the software. We want to merge it into this one that we have open. So we want to hit merge. Don't worry about cross-reference file, xref. You don't want to do that because you won't be able to move the image inside the scene. So always merge it. Okay, so we've got our 900 deck there in our top view. Okay. Now I can double check that that's 900. I will minimize this window here. It pops down to here, so it's always there. And if that ever disappears and I push X on it, or Alt F4 or something, and it disappears, I can just open it back up by pushing Asset Browser and it will pop back up. So I'm just going to minimize that, leave it there. So I can check the height. I can zoom in on the front of it, and each one of these little boxes represents 10 centimeters or 100 millimeters, and each one of these dark lines is a meter. So I can tell that this is 900 because it's 1 under the meter. So we've got our 90 deck, and the next one I want to do is a 120 deck. So I'll just zoom this in here so you can see what's going on in 3D. Rotate that around so it gives you a bit of a different view. Gonna open this window back up. Now I want a 120 deck. I just got to find it in here. There it is. 1200. Merge. Now because I've already got something in the scene that uses the same objects with the same names, it's asking me if I want to still merge it, and of course we do. So just click apply to all duplicates and use to merge material. That's fine. And I'm just going to place it next to the 90 deck. Now the 120 deck won't use the posts for the 90 deck. They're too short. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these two posts here just by selecting and then pushing the delete key. And then I'm just going to select the 120 deck and its posts, and I'm just going to move it over on the axis until it lines up. Okay, and that's the majority of what we'll be doing. It's just lining things up, moving it a little bit more, lining it up. Okay, so now when you have a look down here, you can see that we have our 90 deck and our 120 deck. The 90 deck is using the posts from the 120 deck because they're taller. Okay, you wouldn't use the 90 posts here because they would look something like this, and you wouldn't be able to put a panel here or on the other side. Control Z. So that's the reasoning there. So that's looking good. I want to put an infill panel in there so people can't trap their foot in that gap. So there's an infill panel there, and the name of it is infill panel 30, which when you're mousing over files, their file name comes up in the bottom pane here. Okay, infill panel 30. So that represents 300 mil, 30 centimeters, 0.3 of a meter, however you want to say it. Okay, it's probably just under 15 inches or something. No, not 15 inches. I think it's about 11 inches or something. In any case, so let's just drag and drop this over in our top view, merge, and our infill panel is now over here. Okay, so I'm just going to place it whereabouts I think. Now obviously you can see that it's too low over here, so I'm just going to minimize this window. Okay, now I can do it in this front view, which actually technically this is looking from the side. This isn't looking from the front. If this was looking for the front, this should really be looking like that. Okay, technically. Sometimes I just don't worry. But look, for now we'll do it this way, just so it's not confusing. Okay, so I can raise it up here in this window, or I can do it in a perspective window, which is why I like to have this one as perspective, because I like to enlarge it with with Alt W. I like to spin my model around, hit F3 so it's solid colour, and I like to move it up in position like this so I can actually get a visual feel for it. I'm going to rotate that. And I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so I like it to sit nice. Okay, it's a little bit short, so I'm just going to scale it. So the short key, or the short keys for these three up here, which you use a lot, you select the move is W. So if I hit W, my gizmo turns into the straight arrows. If I hit E for rotate, okay, just think of E for the last letter on rotate, or whatever you want, that turns it into the sphere. And then I've got R for scale. I don't even know what you want to try and think the R equals scale for, because it's a bit weird. Maybe for uniform, I don't know. But you can hit R for scale, and it's good to get used to this. So W-E-R, W-E-R, R-E-W, E-R-W. It's just at your fingertips. It's very easy to use. So I'm pushing R for scale because I just want to scale it up a little bit, and then I want to hit move and just drop it down a touch. So there's no gaps here and there's no gaps at the top. It looks flush. Look, no one's really going to care about the little details like this. I do. I like to do it. And you'll see later that I'm a little bit pedantic with the clamps. I just think it looks good. You don't have to do it. So I'm just going to make that flush. Like that. Okay. I can even bring that in a bit more. And that'll do. So now we've got our infill panel in. We've filled up the gap, and now we have a 90 to 120 deck system going on there. I'm going to Alt W, open my window back up. Now I'm going to have a think about what I want to put on this. Now, I'm going to put I think I might put a double wave slide or something off the 120 deck, off the end. So we're going to go down to slide. We're going to open that up. Now it's categorized into height, and then you have whirl slides and tube slides and stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and open the 120, and here's the slides that are in the 120 high section. So there should be a straight double wave, which is that one. So I'm just going to bring my window down a little bit so I can fit the slide in the top of the window there. Merge. Now if this happens, the file has merged, but you can't see it. Alright? That's not to say it's not there. So if we just zoom out, okay, it was all the way over there. See, it's not under my mouse cursor. Now this will happen quite a bit.